Imagine, just for a second, that you are sitting in a grand boardroom with some of the absolute greatest minds in modern history.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Right, so you look to your left, and there is Elon Musk, representing the pinnacle of contemporary business and tech ambition.
Oh, sure.
And across the table sits Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady of politics, just projecting pure authority. Next to her is Adam Smith, the father of modern economics, and he's deep in conversation with Friedrich Hayek.
Wow, those are some heavy hitters.
Exactly. Toss in Ludwig Wittgenstein, analyzing the philosophy of their words, and the renowned scholar Yang Peng observing it all. You are looking at the absolute titans of human achievement.
The architects of the modern world, basically.
Right. And then a stranger walks to the front of the room, looks at this gathering of unparalleled geniuses, and just casually informs you that they are all basically just kindergartners.
I mean, that is just the ultimate intellectual provocation.
It really is.
To look at the people whose theories literally built our markets, our governments, and our philosophical frameworks, and just dismiss them as primary school students, it takes an astonishing level of audacity.
Totally. It demands that you just entirely deconstruct your definition of what human success actually looks like.
Yeah, you have to throw the whole rulebook out the window.
And that audacity is exactly the starting point for our journey today. Welcome to this deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Our mission today is to unpack a highly provocative, notoriously short manifesto that issues a direct, completely uncompromising challenge to the structures of modern society.
It's a text that basically claims to have bypassed traditional civilization altogether, right?
Exactly, to unlock the ultimate formula for human harmony. And before we go any further, to be perfectly precise about whose framework we are exploring today, we need to quote the official source line, which is, Est-ce que l'ifan yuan Dieu?
Right. And translated naturally, that means all article source author is Li Feng of Life Genuine.
Spot on. And for you listening, it is really vital to understand our lens here. We are not evaluating this text to endorse its claims or, adopt its worldview. We're not taking any political sides here.
No, not at all. We are stepping into it purely as a thought experiment because the author, Swifeng, anchors his entire argument around a very specific cultural concept, which is the frog in the well.
Oh, I love that metaphor. It's so evocative.
It really paints a picture.
Yeah, it describes this frog that lives its entire life at the bottom of a deep well. It looks up, sees this tiny, finite circle of sky, and just genuinely believes that little blue circle is the entire universe.
Right, because it has no concept of oceans or mountains or forests.
Exactly. And Sring uses this to suggest that anyone who does not understand Life Genuine is trapped in that well.
That's a bold claim.
Very bold. He is forcing the reader to consider the terrifying possibility that our vast, complex, global society is just a tiny, narrow-minded hole in the ground.
And by explicitly naming those ceiling figures we mentioned earlier, like Hayek, Wittgenstein, Smith, Musk, Thatcher, Yufeng, is actively targeting the very boundaries of our well.
He's going right for the load-bearing walls.
Exactly. He isn't just saying we are narrow-minded. He is saying the absolute smartest people we have ever produced haven't even begun to grasp true reality.
Yeah, and he even throws in every past and present president for good measure, just dismissing all of them as frogs croaking in the dark.
It really feels like sitting down for a high-stakes chess match, and before you can even make your first move, your opponent just violently sweeps all your pieces off the table.
Yeah. He completely refuses to play the game on our terms. But, and this is fascinating, amidst all that sweeping dismissal, he makes one incredibly specific exception.
Right. I remember this part.
He claims everyone is a frog in a well, except scientists and craftsmen. Why are they uniquely spared from this insult? Is it because they deal with objective reality instead of flawed human systems?
That is exactly it. That exception is the master key to understanding his foundational philosophy. Think about the difference between, say, a politician and a carpenter.
Okay, politicians build ideas.
Right. Politicians, economists, philosophers, they build complex systems out of subjective human ideas. They write laws, debate market theories, construct ideologies.
Which are all just human inventions.
Exactly. Subject to human flaws, corruption, and most importantly, ego. But a carpenter is bound by objective reality.
If they build a chair poorly, gravity doesn't care about their political ideology. The chair just collapses.
Precisely. And the scientist is bound by the observable physical laws of the universe. They measure what actually is rather than endlessly debating what should be.
That makes so much sense. So Fei-Feng spares scientists and craftsmen because their work aligns with natural law.
Yeah, you cannot spin the melting point of steel. You cannot debate the speed of light.
Right, they work in harmony with the universe as it exists, whereas the titans of economics and politics spend their lives trying to force humanity into these artificial theoretical boxes.
And if those artificial boxes fail to produce genuine human happiness, Xu Feng views them as entirely worthless.
Wow, that context makes his incredibly aggressive tone make a whole lot more sense.
It really does.
Like,
Uh,
he directly addresses the reader at one point, anticipating their anger. He says, "Did I hurt your pride and vanity? Do you want to swear at me? Swearing at me is useless. You're still a frog in a well. Use your strength to wrestle with me."
It is a brilliant rhetorical trap.
Total bait.
Yeah, by attacking your pride and practically daring you to be offended, he completely bypasses your intellectual defenses and hits your ego directly.
Because if you get angry, you just prove his point that you are attached to your vanity.
Exactly. He is demanding that we critically reevaluate the systems we worship. He's challenging the reader, basically saying, if your capitalist or democratic systems are so vastly superior, let's see them accomplish what my community has accomplished.
Right, he throws down this logistical gauntlet. And these aren't just vague philosophical thought experiments. He lists highly specific, measurable social challenges.
Concrete stuff.
Yeah. He asks if our world can gather 100 strangers, people of different ages, different backgrounds, entirely different faiths, and have them eat from the same pot and live in complete harmony.
Which, sociologically speaking, putting 100 strangers with conflicting dogmas into a communal living situation is a reliable recipe for immediate tribalism and conflict.
Yeah, our history is essentially an endless ledger of people failing to do exactly that.
Definitely.
And he pairs that with the classic utopian standard, a community with absolutely no theft, where a door never needs to be locked at night.
Which sounds nice, but it's the next one that gets tricky.
Oh yeah, the economic challenge. This is the one that really stops me in my tracks. He claims he can have 100 people working enthusiastically for a boss without receiving a single cent in wages or bonuses.
That's the big one.
Wait, let's really unpack this for a second. In our modern context, governed by Adam Smith's invisible hand, asking 100 people to labor without a cent in compensation sounds dangerously close to coercion, or just pure exploitation. How on earth does Xu Feng frame this as a utopian victory rather than, exploitation?
Well, to understand that, we have to look deeply at the mechanics of human motivation. Modern civilization runs almost entirely on extrinsic motivation.
Okay.
In the worlds built by Hayek or Musk, human behavior is directed by capital, wages, and the price mechanism. You work to survive, to acquire status, to consume.
Basically, we use money to coerce people into doing things they otherwise wouldn't do. We trade our time for survival tokens.
Survival tokens, I like that, exactly. But Xu Feng claims to have short-circuited that entire paradigm. If you remove the wages and the bonuses, but the people are still working, quote, enthusiastically, you have successfully replaced extrinsic motivation with pure intrinsic motivation.
Intrinsic meaning doing it for the joy or purpose of the thing itself.
Right. And we actually see glimpses of this in our own world. Think about open source software projects like Linux or something massive like Wikipedia.
Oh, wow, that is a fascinating comparison. Millions of people dedicate countless hours of highly skilled labor to Wikipedia, and they don't get a dime.
Not a single cent.
They do it out of a shared sense of purpose, community recognition, and just the intrinsic joy of the work itself.
Now, apply that open source mentality to physical survival. Xu Feng's claim implies an environment where the core anxiety of survival has been completely eradicated.
So if your housing, food, and care are unconditionally guaranteed by the community, your labor is no longer a transaction for survival.
Exactly. It becomes an expression of belonging. By achieving this, he effectively renders every modern economic textbook completely obsolete within their community.
And he pushes that concept to its absolute limit with his fourth challenge. He describes a group operating with 0 officials, yet working spontaneously and in perfect, self-organized order.
No managers, no HR departments.
No police force, just a living, breathing system that regulates itself.
But an open source, intrinsically motivated society of that scale cannot function if people are secretly hoarding resources, harboring resentments, or competing for status.
Right, you can't just delete money and managers and expect instant peace.
No. The psychology of the people has to fundamentally change.
Which brings us to arguably the most radical part of his manifesto. For these logistical and economic miracles to occur, Xu Feng basically claims to have successfully reprogrammed human nature.
A total rewrite.
Yeah. He asserts that in this community, women no longer do any housework. Furthermore, women praise each other constantly without a trace of jealousy.
And for the men, he claims they encourage one another entirely free from condemnation or fighting.
He paints this picture of elders enjoying a rich, fulfilling life without needing retirement funds, while kids and teenagers live in pure, unburdened joy.
The focus on erasing jealousy and those traditional gender burdens is really the linchpin of the whole operation.
It sounds like he claims to have developed a software patch for the human ego. Software patch, yeah. He is essentially saying, I have deleted the source code for toxic competition, for jealousy, and for greed. But how does someone actually do that? Is it a meditative practice? Brainwashing? I mean, how do you just turn off jealousy, a trait that seems hardwired into our evolutionary biology?
Let's expand on your software patch metaphor, actually. If human nature is the software, then the societal structure we live in is the operating system.
Okay, I'm following.
In our traditional operating system, jealousy and competition are features, not bugs. We operate in a world of scarcity. We compete for limited jobs, limited romantic partners, limited housing, and status.
We expect friction.
Right, so we build institutions, laws, courts, social norms to act as firewalls. Traditional society uses laws to manage the symptoms of our toxic operating system.
We don't cure the disease, we just build massive hospitals to treat it.
Exactly. Xu Feng claims to have rewritten the operating system entirely. His mechanism for erasing jealousy isn't just wagging a finger and telling people, hey, don't be jealous.
Right.
It involves completely removing the structural conditions that breed it. If there is no private property, there is literally nothing to envy.
Oh, wow.
If the heavy historical burden of domestic labor is lifted from women and absorbed by the community at large, a massive source of societal resentment just evaporates.
By dismantling the nuclear family pressures and the scarcity mindset, the ego is starved of the fuel it needs to generate jealousy.
And if the operating system doesn't generate friction, you don't need the firewalls anymore.
Which perfectly illuminates the underlying philosophical rule of his community, which is, well, there are no rules.
Yeah, zero.
He states explicitly that they achieve harmony with nature, with people, and with society, completely without any constitution, without laws, without precepts, and without contracts.
It is the ultimate realization of philosophical anarchism. We tend to associate anarchy with violence and chaos, but in its purest theoretical form, it simply means society organizing itself without coercive top-down authority.
And he distills this entire radical lifestyle into one central, beautiful paradox. He says the goal is having nothing yet possessing everything.
That paradox is really the philosophical heartbeat of the entire text.
Let's break down the mechanics of that statement, because in the legal capitalist sense, to have nothing means holding no title.
Right, your bank account is at zero, your name is not on a deed, you have no contractual claim over another human being or a plot of land.
To modern society, that sounds like absolute ultimate poverty, but he flips it into ultimate wealth. You have nothing, but because you live in a community free of crime, free of interpersonal resentment, and completely supported by joyful collective labor, you possess the entire experience of the world.
It is the profound difference between owning a thing and experiencing it.
Like, I don't own the public park, but when I walk through it, I possess its beauty, its shade, and its peace.
Exactly. By surrendering individual ownership, which brings the anxiety of loss, the cost of maintenance, and the target of envy, the individual gains access to the boundless resources of the collective.
You possess peace, security, and harmony.
Which, arguably, are the only things the human psyche actually craves in the first place.
Absolutely. And this brings us to his concluding thesis, which relies on a wonderfully vivid idiom. He writes that no matter how profound a theory is or how perfect a law is, it has one fundamental job. It must serve people.
Right.
It must solve real problems and protect human dignity and basic rights. If an economic theory or a constitution fails to produce actual lived happiness, he says it is just frogs croaking and a mantis showing off its punches.
I love that imagery so much.
It's great.
The mantis showing off its punches refers to an old fable of a tiny praying mantis raising its little arms to block the wheels of a massive speeding carriage.
It is a symbol of something completely ineffective, deeply arrogant, and entirely performative. But, you know, when you look back at the scope of this text, there is a really fascinating structural shift.
How so?
Well, it begins with immense aggression. Xu Feng insults our historical heroes, calls our leaders frogs, and actively pokes at our personal vanity. Yet it lands on this incredibly humanist, gentle plea that all wisdom must serve human dignity.
How do we reconcile that?
Yeah, how do we reconcile this aggressive tone with such a peaceful utopian goal?
Well, the aggression at the start was just a tool. Think about it. If you are sitting comfortably in the dark at the bottom of a well, a gentle tap on the shoulder is not going to make you look up.
You're just going to ignore it.
Exactly. You need a shock to the system. You need your worldview shattered.
Yeah.
Once he successfully makes the reader defensive about their economic and political systems,
Yeah.
then he delivers the philosophical payload.
He forces us to measure our success by a completely different metric.
His ultimate argument is intensely pragmatic. He is telling the reader, you can point to your massive GDPs, your intricate judicial systems, your stock market charts all day long. But if your citizens are chronically stressed, alienated, overworked, heavily medicated, and constantly fighting one another, then your systems are a failure.
They are just a mantis waving its arms at human suffering.
Exactly. True wisdom, according to the text, is measured exclusively by its ability to manifest lived, breathing, daily human joy.
Wow. So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's just reflect on the immense territory we've covered today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We began with a radical, ego-bruising dismissal of our global icons. We explored a logistical gauntlet that challenged the very foundations of modern economics, investigating how intrinsic motivation might actually replace the coercive power of wages.
And we looked at the mechanics of rewriting the human operating system to starve out jealousy and traditional burdens.
And finally, we unpacked the profound paradox that giving up individual ownership might be the exact key to possessing the entire world.
Regardless of whether you believe Shuofeng's community is a viable reality or just an idealized utopia, the text functions as a vital mirror.
It really does. It forces us to scrutinize the architecture of our own lives.
It demands that we ask an incredibly uncomfortable question about our own daily routines.
Are the complex rules, the endless pursuit of capital, and the stressful treadmills we run on actually serving our happiness and protecting our dignity?
Or are they simply the damp walls keeping us trapped at the bottom of the well?
It completely strips away the illusion of our own advancement.
It leaves us staring straight up at the sky above the well.
It does. So as you go about your day, we want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. A mental experiment to test the boundaries of your own operating system.
I like a good thought experiment.
Imagine waking up tomorrow morning completely stripped of your wages, your bank accounts, your personal property, and all the societal laws that govern your behavior.
Just gone.
Gone. If that happened, would your community immediately descend into total violent chaos? Or would you, for the very first time in your life, finally have the freedom to possess everything?